Yeah, so for this first journal prompt, just get yourself into a comfortable place. So whether that's laying down on your back or you want to come to a comfortable seat or your belly. Sometimes I find it's a lot to just dive right into journaling. So we're just going to take about a couple minutes just to ground. So you can close down your eyes. You can start your playlist if you want, whenever you're ready. And just start to feel the gentle rise and fall of your breath. So nothing is forced. There's just this gentle rhythm. You can I always like to imagine myself as a boat just floating along the waves of your inhales as they rise up and exhales as they dip down. And then visualize yourself as a container that is empty. So whatever type of container, vase, box, jar, but this is the container that of you. And your breath is just flowing in and out seamlessly. Now just imagine all of the things that you've been putting in that container lately. So all the thoughts, all the worries, self-doubt, judgment, maybe all the stress that you've been placing within. Just take a moment to consider what you are filling this container with. And then notice how full your container is by the end of, noticing and recognizing what you've been placing inside. And that doesn't matter how far you keep pushing down and pushing down, eventually it does start to overflow. That we don't have unlimited energy to handle a full container constantly. That breath that used to move in and out now gets shortened and squished and tight. So there's not room for that fluidity. And then instead of adding in more judgment for whatever's come up over these last couple of minutes, can you actually offer yourself compassion to maybe just let some of those go? So maybe you don't have to hold the weight of something. Maybe it's okay to just empty that expectation of yourself out. And so with this experience of the last couple of moments, you have an option to just sit with this and eventually make your way onto your back. Or you can pick up a pen, a paper, and just write some of those things. Okay, so some of the things that came up, what are you filling this container of self with? So leave it up to you if you want to break away from the meditation and just kind of jot some things down. I find it's nice to jot them down because it's almost a physical act of taking out of the container. So things you don't have to think about anymore because they're on that paper. So you can kind of trust if you forget, you can go back to that paper and remember. So let's give you a minute or so to just kind of write down whatever came up for you. And so there's absolutely no rush if you still are writing down, emptying out some of the maybe thoughts bouncing around right now. Just continue to do so until you feel ready to join us. You'll make your way onto your back for our first pose. Okay, but no rush. We'll take a few more breaths to get there. So once you've finished with your journaling, you can just start to make your way onto your mat. Maybe you'll just bring your knees into your chest. Or you can just bring in a little bit of movement to invite yourself to this practice. Let's take a big good evening stretch. So you can release your feet to your mat, extend your legs long, and then reach your arms overhead. Take a big full inhale from the tips of your toes to the tops of your fingertips. And then exhale, just drop into your body, relax. So you can imagine your exhale as emptying out. So inhale, filling up this physical container of your lungs. And exhale to just cleanse and release out. Let's take one more big full belly breath in. And exhale to let that go. Banana Asana over to the right. You can start to walk your heels to the bottom right corner of your mat. And then take your hands and maybe even shoulders to the top right corner. My favorite restorative variation of this pose is to slide your right heel in until your foot plants. So your knee points up to the sky, and then right hand comes down beside your body, and your right hand connects to your ankle or shin. Other options that are going to be a little bit more intensity and sensation is to cross either ankle over the other. Maybe you grab a hold of your left wrist with your right hand. So the further over to the right your feet and hands travel, while your hips stay rooted in the center of your mat, the more sensation will happen down the left side of your body. And then coming back to this container analogy, that there is a limited amount of space for you to be in the present moment. And so we just cleared out this space with those 3 breaths. And sometimes in this practice, we fill it right away with sensation. And then we're just trying to hold this to the brim filled container without it spilling out. And that's a lot of effort and strain. So in the yin practice, you want to find that balance between there's enough sensation that you can feel, but it's not so much that it's overwhelming or actually taking you out of the present moment. So making sure that you still have room within your body to breathe deeply and slowly. Room for your thoughts to flow rather than rattle around. And room to just simply be. What's also beautiful about this practice is that if you notice at any point you're feeling like there's too much happening within, you have agency to just empty out a little bit. So take away some sensation, pause, reset. So you're never stuck in this state. You can always shift until it serves you. As we hold into these poses, sometimes our experience starts to get louder, sensation becomes bigger or deeper. And so your transition is also an act of just rinsing, kind of pouring out whatever has been a huge part of these last few minutes and coming back towards emptiness, neutrality. So really pay attention over these next couple of breaths as you start to walk your hands back through center and feet back through center. Now you're welcome to stay elongated. Or if you're like me and low back gets a little bit tender, laying flat, you can bend your knees, plant your feet, and then just drop your knees towards one another. You might start to notice sensation shifting in the body. Maybe even recognizing how simple it was to create change. To just simply come back to neutral and let go of where you were. To just come into where you are now. Whenever you are ready, find the other side. If you need some small movements to help stimulate that shift to neutrality, you're always welcome to rock knees side to side or extend your legs long or bend knees in. Eventually, you'll walk your feet over to the left and then hands and shoulders walk over as well. If you're taking the restorative variation of this pose, which is a little bit kinder towards low back, you can bend into your left knee and plant your left foot on the earth. And then left hand wraps your ankle. This just helps to square your hips so that there's no twisting of the lumbar spine. And this practice is all about checking in. So just checking in that where you've landed is serving you. We often call this the Goldilocks Principle. So it's not too much sensation, it's not too little, it's just right. So it's both comfortable and a little bit uncomfortable. Has that balance of effort and ease. So a container isn't going to be fully empty here. There's going to be a little bit of sensation filling your experience. And maybe some thoughts or emotions. All the things that are available in the present moment. But none of them are so big or loud or explosive that they're serving as a distraction, that they're adding to that feeling of overwhelm. So empty out as much as you need to just be here. And if you ever notice some of those thoughts that maybe you wrote down earlier coming back up, maybe you just remind yourself that you don't need to hold it. Your paper can hold that thought for you. And typically, these thoughts are not of the present moment. They hold the weight of the past, the borrowed fear of the future. And in actuality, there's not really anything we can necessarily do right in this moment. And so it's okay to just let those go and come back to the cleansing movement of your breath. And gently, over the next few breaths, You can start to bring yourself all the way back through center. This time, hug your knees into your chest. Expand into the low back. And if you're craving any movement, you can gently rock side to side a couple of times. You're welcome to take as long as you need in this transition. So there's no rush to catch up or anything. And you'll gently roll over to your right side. I'm going to use props in this next pose. You're welcome to use blocks or pillows, but they're not necessary either. So I'll walk you through both variations. Just gently press yourself up. We're going to come into laying on our bellies. And so I'm going to use props, but if you don't have them available, you can always just place your elbows down in the same way that I am, just not on props, so just on your mat. So you'll gently, I'm going to start by making your way down onto your belly first. And then place the backs of your arms either onto the ground or onto blocks. Ideally, elbows are shoulder width or even slightly wider. So wider will help with sensation being a little bit lessened. Feet can be together, or if your low back gets a little bit sticky, just take feet wider. Forehead to your mat with your chin humbled to your chest. Bring your hands to prayer and then gently just tip your hands up and over top of your head so that your thumbs land at the nape of your neck. If you want more sensation, if you are on blocks, you can always walk yourself back so that your elbows are just kind of on the edge of the block. Or you can always take your blocks up onto a higher level if you prefer. With this pose, just pay attention to the amount of sensation in the shoulders. Want to try to avoid tensing up to hold ourselves somewhere. So you can think of that as the struggle to keep the water from spilling out over the top of this container. There's a whole lot of effort. So instead, just lessen intensity so that you can really be in the flow of your breath and allow your body to soften. See if you can allow your thoughts to just focus on the present moment. So there still are going to be thoughts and feelings, things coming up. Just continually shift to what's present rather than what was before this or what will come after. If your hands are still overhead, you'll just gently release your fingertips forward. And one at a time, you can release your props out. Take either cheek to your mat and then slide your hands down beside you, palms face up. Let your shoulders get really, really heavy into the earth. Let the surface beneath you support you. Gently bring your chin back to your mat and place your hands under your shoulders. Peel yourself away from the ground. We're moving to a variation of child's pose. Yogi's choice if you want to join with the added twist. If you are taking the twist with me, grab, I would suggest not a block, grab a pillow instead. I'll show you with a block. And just take it so that it lands about in between your hands and tabletop. You'll take big toes together to touch and knees wide. And to add in this twist, keep your right hand rooted for a moment and then slide your left hand under your body in between your right wrist and right knee. And slowly lower your left shoulder to the ground and then left cheek onto that pillow. Hips pull back towards your heels. Walk your left shoulder away from your ear. It sometimes likes to hike up, which means that the muscles are tensed. Okay, so just allow it to walk down towards your hips. And then right arm can be extended or you can have a soft bend, whatever is most comfortable. I suggest the pillow because it just takes some of the weight off of your shoulder and it helps to elongate your cervical spine. But if it feels better without a pillow under your cheek, you can take it out, or you can always just come back to a traditional child's pose with forehead to the earth and fingertips forward. Over time, your body might start to rest heavier, bringing you into more sensation. But because it's over time, it gives your body a chance to get comfortable where it is, and then just slowly introduces a little bit more of that depth. It's kind of this practice of titration, just adding tiny little bits at a time so that we can still feel safe, feel like we have space to breathe, but we are actually getting into more depth from the start of the pose to the end. Let's take 5 more breaths on this side. Maybe you allow yourself to sink in a little bit deeper, knowing that you won't have to hold this forever. And slowly unwind your left arm from underneath. You're welcome to just move into the other side. If you need a little pause, you can take your hips away from your heels and pull forward. And take any movements you're craving. And then on your own time, right arm threads underneath your body, right shoulder and right cheek to your mat. This idea of emptying out is, it's kind of like unplugging to recharge. It seems counterintuitive in a way. But sometimes when we're so full of all the things we should be doing, we're not doing, we still have to do, all the expectations or comparisons, judgments. It's almost like we get paralyzed by the weight of it all. And we get so bogged down and overwhelmed that we can't function at our operant capacity. And so sometimes, just like with electronics, they start to overheat. They're working too hard that they just need a shutdown, unplug, just leave them be for a moment. Allow yourself to process whatever is kind of going on within, but also to just kind of shelve it for a bit to come to a place of rest. And so in these last few breaths on this side, if there's anything just kind of stray, hanging about, things that are left over, can you give yourself permission to shelve them for a moment? If they don't have to do with this moment, can you give yourself permission to just press pause on those thoughts? Whatever it is that's taking up your energy. And just simply take 5 full breaths for yourself. At the end of that last breath, you can gently unravel. Take your right hand forward. And then slowly peel your hips away from your heels. You'll make your way onto your seat, facing the side of your mat. Okay. I would suggest props for this next pose. So I usually use blocks, but whatever you have available. You'll extend your right leg out long, bend your left knee and take the sole of your left foot to the inside of your right leg. If this is pinching in this left hip, You can always take a pillow or prop underneath the knee. Sometimes that helps. Or just play with where your foot is landing. Doesn't have to be perfectly in. Now your other props will go along the inside of your right leg, or if it's easier to access, on top of your thigh. And start to lean over to the right, and you'll place your elbow onto those props. So with blocks, if you need more height, just take them up onto a higher level. And then you can take your cheek into your right hand and right palm. Optional, left hand can stay as it is for more restorative variation. Or as you inhale, take your left fingertips up to the sky. And then as you exhale, bend into your left elbow and just interlace your hands to the back of your head. So really working to that side body opening. Remember that this is not meant to, shock you into a pose. You think about it as almost wading out into the waves of sensation. So just dipping your toes in at first, slowly starting to go deeper and deeper, but never falling so deep that you feel like you're treading water just to stay afloat. So you can always lessen sensation or just release from where you are. Sometimes in these poses, it just feels like a lot. And so in those moments, instead of focusing on the overwhelm, instead of zeroing in on the intensity, you can really just focus on breath. And carving out some space for your breath to flow in the present moment. So let's just take about 5 more breaths on this side. It's a bit of a shorter pose because it does have that extra intensity. So there's always that balance. Soften your shoulders down your back. And slowly, and release your left hand down to your thigh, or even onto your blocks. You can help press yourself back up. You'll immediately start to feel release of that left side. I like to just lean back here, so you can walk your fingertips back and just lean into your hands. Always optional to straighten out your left leg as well. So this is that coming back to center, back to calm. Letting go of whatever just passed. And whenever you're ready, you can start to find the other side. So bend into your right knee and bring the sole of your right foot to the inside of your left leg. Move your blocks over to the left side. either inside your leg, or if you don't have enough height, onto your thigh can also help. You're just gonna lean over to your left and place your left elbow onto those props. Additionally, a hand can come down, but I find elbow nice so your head can rest into your palm. You might just need to add more height if it feels like a lot. Inhale your right fingertips up, big stretch. And then as you exhale, just bend into your right elbow and interlace your hands to the back of your head. This side might feel like a little bit more sensation for you. It could be less. So just navigate this one breath at a time. And try as best as you can to just stay present with the sensation. Practicing breathing through intensity, barriers, whatever's coming up, still allowing yourself to find that gentle ebb and flow. You're already more than halfway through this side. Reset, empty out as many times as you need. Let's take 5 more breaths together. And if your left or your right arm is still overhead, you can just gently release your right hand to your thigh or even onto your props and just help to press yourself up. And walk your hands back and just lean into your hands. You should pretty immediately feel sensation release. Maybe move to different areas of your body. And then when you're ready, you can start to walk your hands up again. And take one more pose in seated, and I'll leave the variation up to each of you for your fold. So butterfly fold might be really nice after our half dragonflies, or you can always play with full dragonfly as well, so legs extended out. If you prefer caterpillar, maybe toes come together and heels together. So whatever variation you're choosing to take today, I'm just going to drape the spine forward. If you have props to set your head up on, that can be really, really nice. Just to relax into the back of the head, neck, and shoulders. You can always play with the distance your heels are from your body or each other. So there's no perfect way to fold. And if all of these are just feeling too much, simply place your feet on the ground and with bent knees, just drape over top of your thighs. Folds are one of my favorite ways to find surrender. So you really don't have to do any work in a fold. You just have to let go and trust that gravity will bring you down. And if you feel like you're fighting the pose itself, just add props where you feel like you're going too deep. So under your chest or your forehead, knees. Take your time to roll up your spine, vertebra by vertebra, until you come all the way up. You can take your hands to the other edges of your knees and just bring your knees together. And slowly, gracefully make your way onto your back. So you can either roll down your spine or just roll to either side for fetal, and then make your way onto your back. For our final pose today, we're going to take one twist to each side. If there's a variation that you're craving, you're welcome to take it, even if I don't cue the twist that maybe you need tonight, that's okay. So just making sure, we'll start with twisting over to the right. So you'll pick up your hips and just slide them over to the left, keeping your shoulders in the center of your mat. I like to take props, whether it's a block or a pillow, in between my knees and sometimes even ankles. So a bolster can also be nice. And then hug your knees into your chest to expand through your low back. And slowly start to lower your knees all the way over to the right. And sometimes you need adjustments. So you can always come back up, reset your props. There's a gap between your bottom leg and the ground, just slide a block underneath. You can always rest your right hand onto the top of your left thigh. And gaze just comes wherever is comfortable. maybe in the opposite direction, or maybe just straight up at the sky. Now, as you start to get more and more comfortable in this pose, I encourage you to go back to that image at the start of your practice when you pictured the container of yourself. And whether that container had a bottom. So majority of the time we picture something with one opening, a top opening, and solid on all the other sides. In actuality, our container of what we can hold can actually be more of a tunnel. So if you were to break that bottom side out, you just become not a vessel to hold, but a vessel to experience. So instead of collecting shoulds and lessons and identities and just stuffing them all inside, we actually just allow these things to flow into this container in whatever moment they show up, and then also flow out. So this idea that you're never static from one moment to the next. That just because thoughts flow in, it doesn't mean they have to stay. You just give them permission to exit. And when things start to linger, it's because we're giving them our attention and energy. We're holding on to them by continually looping back, not letting them release. And so perhaps you just start to acknowledge this experience as being an open-ended vessel on both sides. Let sensation come in and leave, so that there's room for the next thing to come in and move through and out. Take 3 more big, slow breaths. See if you can start to link up with that rhythm of filling up and emptying out. So not filling up to hold, but to experience the full inhale, and then just simply let it go. After your next exhale, you can start to gather your knees back up through center. Take any movements, poses that you need in between sides. Sometimes that's knees to chest on your back, or windshield wipering the knees. Maybe just extending the legs long. And I'll leave it up to each of you on your own time to find twist on the other side. Just making sure your hips slide over to the right, which will give more space for your knees to move to the left. That theme of balance, even within the physiological body. So I find this visual can be really, really helpful when we start to get stuck on labels. So, for example, maybe in a moment you weren't your best self. And instead of just recognizing, I'm not my best self in this moment, let it go. And then bring in what you want to. So maybe compassion or forgiveness or relaxation. We hold it. We hold that label that I'm not enough, or I'm frustrated, I'm angry, I'm sad. We take this emotion and we place it on ourselves. But emotion is just energy in motion. Something happens in our external environment. It causes us a reaction. But eventually the external environment's gone and we still hold it. So we just have to start to open up that other end of the vessel and let the energy release. And sometimes it's internalized, our fear of a future perceived event. But it's something that's sparking up that emotion, and then we just hold it. And then we start to create stories and narratives about it. So I encourage you, in the last little bit of this pose, can you just start to let that go? With each exhale breath, let go of whatever it is that you're holding in that moment. Thought, emotion, judgment, should. Last couple of breaths on this side. Maybe just clearing out some space for final Shavasana. And so when you're ready, you can start to unwind back through center. There's no rush. Take any final movements, stretches, expansions, or curling in tight that you need before you find final Shavasana on your back. So just extending the legs out long, arms down beside you. With that being said, if there is a different shape of Shavasana for you today, that's okay too. Just find whatever allows you to be in the most comfort of your practice. So this mindfulness technique of just staying with the present moment will inadvertently just bring you calm. So it doesn't mean it's easy, but the present moment right now, it's pretty chill. There's not a lot going on that we have to do or focus on. All you're being asked to do is to breathe. That can be hard. And so give yourself some love and some patience that you might have to come back to the present moment a couple of times. And just remind yourself it's okay to just be in the simplicity of right here, right now. All those things that you wrote down earlier will still be there after class. But for right now, just giving yourself that gift of space. I'll bring you out of this shortly so we can close off together. And you are so welcome to just stay as you are and close off your practice on your back. If you are ready to just come into that final journaling prompt, you can slowly make your way to seated and just fold your hands into heart center, humbling your chin to your chest. To be in the present moment is to just give yourself space to feel all that this life has for you without having to hold it all. So to be able to experience from the tip of your head to the bottoms of your toes without having to be overwhelmed, because you can simply let it go and move into that next moment. So much love and gratitude from the bottom of my heart. Namaste. Now, if you do want to complete this journaling, you're welcome to do it now or whenever. But what you'll do is just look at that list you wrote and all the things that you wrote down. You can maybe even start to cross off which ones are you willing to let go of? Which ones are past and there's maybe not anything we can do about it? Maybe which ones are future worries that we can't control? Maybe some of them have just hung around a little bit past their due date. So just kind of looking at all those things that have been filling up your container. Which ones are you willing to let go of so you have some space to just move through? And I personally just like to cross them off, but you can do whatever you like with them. But just starting to carve out some space for yourself in this next week coming up. I'll stay on if anyone wants to chat or write anything in the chat. Have a beautiful rest of your night.